Now, Rebecca Hardwick is our next speaker, going to talk about where now for health and care services in the South West. And you will see from her biography in the conference notes that she has spent her career working mainly, not exclusively, with mental health issues. And yes, Claire?
Yes, I think that's fair. Yes. Oh, it has been said.
Yes,
thank you.
And over to you.
Okay, thanks very much. I will endeavour to make sure that I finish timely so that there are time for the others. Okay. I'm struck by the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it says "Don't panic." You know, it flashes up and it's like a message to Arthur Daly, and I kind of feel a bit like that at the moment, really, because there's a lot going on, isn't there? And there's a lot happening, and I think it's easy to feel, well, and I certainly do feel quite overwhelmed by what is going to happen, or what has happened, or what have I missed, and things. So I'd like to know where my towel is and to keep an eye on not panicking, actually, for the time being. So I'm Rebecca Hardwick, and I work for an organisation called the South West Development Centre. We're funded by the Strategic Health Authority in the South West to support local policy implementation. And my particular role is as a development consultant, so I am a consultant, the C word. And my particular areas of interest at the moment are around dementia care, suicide prevention, and voluntary sector partnership working, which for some of you is probably where you may have met me before, either in running workshops or through events like this. I'm also the chair of a CVS in Devon as well, and that has been something that I've done for the last couple of years, and it's been a rewarding and challenging experience for those of us who are trustees. I think you'll agree. It is fantastic opportunity, really, to understand things from another point of view, really. And for someone like myself who tends to find herself working at a regional level a lot, it is very grounding and important to be engaged with the proper practical issues of running an organisation in these difficult times. So what I have to share with you today really is reflections, my own reflections about where we are and where we might be going. And they're based on my role and the understandings that I've got from working with the Development Centre, as well as obviously my understandings and work as a volunteer trustee. So I've called this From Strength to Strength, Beyond the Storm. So strangers from distant lands and friends of old, you've come here today to learn something of what the brave new world might have in store for you. Each with her or his own reservations and hopes, we're gathered here to discover more of what the future might hold for us. So which way now for voluntary sector health and care delivery in the South West? Wow, which way indeed? We were talking earlier today in a meeting that some of us were in, and I was saying that perhaps I might give this presentation using the medium of mime. And so to answer this question, I might just shrug. Because the truth is, at the moment, we have a probable timetable, which Emma has outlined in terms of our policy announcements. And whilst we might be hoping for more detail in some areas, we've still got our day jobs to do. The needs of our communities remain. And in fact, for some time now, and you might have found this too, conversations within the public and voluntary sector have centred around the fact that these needs are going to increase as the cuts bite. Not to mention the 5, 10, 20 odd years down the road when the makeup of our communities is going to be really different. There's all sorts of statistics, such as obesity set to rise to 50% of women and 60% of men by 2050, if no action is taken now. That alcohol consumption has doubled between 2000 and 2008. In the Southwest, actually, the life expectancy from birth is pretty good compared to the national averages. However, within counties, there's as much to 9 years difference between the most deprived neighbourhoods and the richest neighbourhoods. There's still much then that needs to be done to reduce health inequalities in the Southwest. The needs remain. And despite the refocusing of the public sector architecture, the messages, they stay the same. Eat less, move more, don't smoke, connect with others, drink less alcohol, be curious of the world around you, keep learning, give, use condoms. I've just got a few simple things to share with you really, and they're based on over or only 10 years experience of working in health, the voluntary sector and the social care sector. And I don't necessarily think that you're going to find these earth-shattering, and in fact I think you probably know them already, but again I think they bear repeating. And the reason for this is because the communities that we serve are really counting on us. And whether they know it or not, they need us, and they will really need us in the months and years to come. So if we're not planning for the future, keeping informed and demonstrating leadership, being proactive and making our impact obvious, we're letting them down. And as my mother would say, we're letting ourselves down. So instead, let us achieve the aims that made us choose these careers in the first place: social justice, defending the rights of the vulnerable, reducing inequalities, and promoting empowerment and advocacy. So how do we do it? How do we prepare for an uncertain future whilst continuing to work in the present? Too often in my own experience, we focus on the here and now, and we leave the planning for a board away day, a team day, time off with our senior team where we go somewhere with lots of flip chart and hope that we can find something useful to do together. So friends, if you haven't already seen the storms ahead, now is the time to lay down your tools and to look to the horizon. We're going to need to show determination and leadership in the years ahead to steer our organisations into the future and to bring to pass a golden age of partnership working, which is quite fanciful maybe. But consider this: if you're not planning the future or leading the change in your organisation, then who is? And if you're not the one reaching out to your partners, who will? I've worked with large and small voluntary organisations in my working career, and each are faced with unique problems when cash flow dries up, but they are equally faced with problems. I'd say 9 times out of 10, it's the ones that take the time to plan for the future that have the rewards of working in it. We know there is a wealth of support, advice, information out there to help us, and it doesn't have to be bureaucratic or too time-consuming. Your local CVS, looking online, wherever you might like to look for it, there is going to be help out there. There's a saying that being lucky takes practice, so when you hear about the next organisation that managed to win that tender or whatever, you think they're lucky, maybe they practiced. And I'd encourage you to consider your planning in the open, getting together with other like-minded organisations, whether they're public, voluntary or private sector, to work it out together, increasing your own circle of influence and also your confidence in the future. I think Emma shared about the strapline, nothing about me without me. I think that's as important for voluntary organisations, nothing about you without you. When you're thinking about the future, that is something which you can hold yourself to account over, and something which you can hold your public sector partners to account over. But what should we be planning for? Well, you can read the rooms as well as I can, and you can see that A, the needs will remain and will increase. B, liberating the NHS and the overall approach of the coalition seems to place emphasis on localism, so doing what works locally is worth doing. C, organisational fitness work is always time well spent, so that's stuff about making sure that you've got the right checks and balances in place in your own organisation, that you've got a strong board, you've got good governance, all of those sorts of things. D, personalisation will continue, so looking at what you offer and how you can adapt it, that's going to remain important. E, much more emphasis on preventative work, so looking at how what you do fits with the JSNA and public health priorities. And in all of that, F is probably the most important, perfecting your balance. So working out how the changing world around you fits with you, looking at all of this through the eye of the user and potential users to avoid becoming just another provider. We've heard before people talking about mission creep or following the money, where you started out in community recycling and ended up in animal protection. And it can be guarded against if whatever you plan to do is seen through the eyes of the people who use your services. Your service users, and not just the Commissioner, should shape whatever it is that you're doing. And perfecting your balance means the needs of both Commissioner and user are upheld without compromising either. Emma's outlined these key milestones and the consultations and the changes which are coming. These are being planned for in the South West too, and I encourage you to seek out the workshop with Alison Ryan tomorrow, non-exec director with NHS South West, and also a charity chief exec, as she's been leading work on ensuring the lines of communication remain open for all of us during the tumultuous times ahead. Unprecedented, these changes to our NHS, to our social services, to our voluntary organisations. The language has changed again. I'm talking about the voluntary sector now, not the third sector, as it was last year. The goalposts have moved. We're talking about outcomes, not just outputs. And we're faced with the prospect of building stronger communities with an economic recession still at our heels, with funding efficiencies to be made, cuts to local authority and non-essential services, and each of us concerned not just with what this means for ourselves, our mortgages, kids, grandparents, parents, health and well-being, but what does it mean for our organisations, our employees, our colleagues, and our communities? Our administration appears to be steadily handing the reins of responsibility back to its people, a move which seems freeing and, in their words, liberating. And if you've read the outcomes framework, you might have experienced a frisson of excitement at the possibilities that spring to mind. Whether you think that it is simple or simplistic, the policy coming out of DH now is attempting to really dig in the patient and user experience of services, attempting to focus local health and care economies on what matters most to patients. And isn't this where we shine brightest? So whether or not you agree with the state once again appropriating the voluntary sector ethos, language and status in its communities, and whether or not you think the big society is really a wolf in sheepish clothing, reading, discussing and mulling over the policies with your boards and senior teams and fellow voluntary organisations is going to always be a worthwhile activity. What strikes me is that no one has got the answers yet. Like the blindfolded men describing an elephant, seeing only the part but not the whole. We need each other to build our full picture and shape the future. So keeping informed and in touch with others in your field remains important. I know we will have people in this room who are great advocates of the Compact and have worked really hard to see its principles brought to life locally. Whilst there are also some of us who will have experienced a considerable frustration at a process which has not achieved the results we desired, well, let me say that if ever there was a time to put the Compact to the test, this is it. Use this mechanism to bring about the conversations and planning meetings which are going to ensure that the sector remains vibrant in the months and years to come, ready to serve local populations whose needs will be increasing. As leaders in the BCS in the South West, you are in a unique and valuable position, poised between the communities and individuals you serve and the public sector. It's likely you'll already be part of your local voluntary sector network, will know all about joint strategic needs assessments, the old local area agreements, will also know who sits on your health and wellbeing partnership board. In fact, it might be you. You'll also be aware of what good leadership looks like, as you'll have worked with many different leaders in your career, and you'll also be interested in how you can improve your leadership skills, strategic development skills, and so on. Participation in training, setting up a learning set, getting a mentor, being coached, being a coach, being a mentor. There are lots of opportunities out there for you to get your teeth into to hone your skills. And in the meantime, draw on the expertise of your trustees and your senior team, if you've got one. Ask for advice, seek feedback, acknowledge that you will always have more to learn about how you can improve. As leaders, you make the future happen. Where there is no clear path, you can make the path that suits your aims and ends. If there's uncertainty locally as to how the DCS will navigate the times ahead, then why not call people together and start the conversation? Now is not the time for others to be outlining what you should be doing. It's a time for you to be doing it. And with everything uncertain, I think it creates room for manoeuvre.
30 seconds.
All of this means next to nothing if we can't prove it. So whilst it's easy to get carried away on the organisational implications of all this policy and rhetoric, to be fluent about arguing the whys and wherefores of change in public services, to unpick bit by bit the uncritical way that the public sector is being made to save money, driven by an administration which is keen to see fairness as guiding principle, but has introduced reforms which are likely to see many different communities disadvantaged through unintended consequences. At some point, we need to stop looking at the storm that is approaching. We need to pick up our tools again and to continue to work in our communities, knowing that we've made time to plan. We're confident in our leadership to see us through. We're informed of what is happening or going to or might happen, but we're proactive, having built our storm shelter, and inside it we are still providing to the communities that we are all here to serve, supporting and enabling them to make it through, and still campaigning for their rights and needs, because they are counting on you, on me, whether they know it or not, they are counting on us.
Thank you very much.